There was a few U.S. students with extensive foreign experience. I just learned yesterday from Jack Summer about his extensive contacts before coming to Dartmouth. But by and large, we were a U.S. bunch. I commend very much the Axel Grabowski's essay on Then and Now, which is in Musings Unlimited, and he has lots of interesting data in there. And one of the pieces I noticed is that he estimates about 1% of our class came to Dartmouth from other countries. Now that figure is much, much higher. So that's one change. The opportunities for us to go abroad as part of our four-year education were much more limited. Axel says Dartmouth had 3 programs back then, and that it has 45 today. So big difference there. But perhaps, to me at least, the most dramatic difference under the heading of isolation is I think we were much more socially isolated. Mel Small, yesterday in that videotape presentation, noted that our class was mostly white. Axel has identified approximately 1% of our class as being students of color. Today, the statistic is more like 30%. I cannot recall, and I've asked a couple of classmates about this too, I cannot recall any classmate being openly gay. That's another type of isolation which existed in our time. And of course, as we all know, there were no women in our ranks. That did not come until the 1970s. My dad happened to be on the board of trustees. I was an alumni trustee at that time, and I can remember how terribly controversial that was and how many alums were unhappy that Dartmouth became coeducational. This morning I went over to Rauner to see the exhibit. They have a special exhibit, memorabilia, regarding the class of 1960. And I was really surprised. One of the items there is a bound set of the Dartmouths, or the Daily D's as we called it, the newspaper from that time, and it's open to a report on the, I guess it's a third in a series they did on coeducation. This was in January of 1960. And there'd been a debate with Thad Seymour against, Fred Berthold, head of the Tucker Foundation, in favor, and our own Gene Cohn is quoted in the article and seems to be saying he was against coeducation. So it was a hot topic, and I'm sure we all recall that for many of us, the lack of coeducation led to the phenomenon of the road trip. Sometimes they were dangerous on those snowy roads, and I don't think, just the way we hadn't heard about snail mail, I don't think I remember the phrase designated driver. And sometimes those trips were kind of pathetic. I can remember one in particular where on the spur of the moment I went with a group of friends down to Smith, and we just kind of wandered around the campus. What were we seeking? Well, I think a polite way to put it is we were seeking some social life. And you can fill in the blank if you think we might have been seeking anything else. But so those are differences. But more important are the similarities. And the similarities, I think, relate to very fundamental things about Dartmouth College. First of all, the place, the setting, the lovely surroundings of the Upper Valley, the gorgeous buildings on the campus, Baker Library, that tower that you can never get out of your mind, Dartmouth Hall. John Sloan Dickey also talked to us a lot about place loyalty. And I think a lot of us, all of us maybe, developed place loyalty in our time in Hanover at Dartmouth. Camaraderie, obviously, Dartmouth famous for that, very strong suit. Friendships formed then are clearly, many of them, very, very strong today. Most important to me, though, is the fact that we had, and I believe students at Dartmouth today have, some superb undergraduate teaching. I hope that every one of my classmates has a short list of favorite teachers that he had when at Dartmouth. I want to mention just briefly 5 of mine. Kenneth Robinson, English department, knew absolutely everything about Broadway theater. Fantastic teacher. Fran Gramlich, philosophy department. Phil 25. A lot of you must remember Phil 25. It was about the philosophy of human nature. Very, very penetrating teacher and very provocative. Royal Namaya was the chairman of the humanities department. He spoke 7 languages. I remember talking to him about how he had lived in Germany in the 1920s, and he adored German culture, German society. Never could understand how the Germans could go for Nazism. Arthur Wilson in the government department, a very inspiring teacher of political theory. He put his teaching first. It was only after his retirement that he published his very large book on Diderot. Finally, Noel Perrin, who was in the English department. I remember taking a poetry course from him the spring term of our senior year, and how he'd have us over to his home for poetry and refreshments. So I think the sameness is there, the strengths remain. I want to congratulate President Kim on his appointment, on finishing up the first academic year. I noticed yesterday when we had our first of our great issues panels, our new trustee, Mort Kondracki, used the word, he said that we are dazzled by President Kim. I would agree completely with Mort. We are dazzled. We are delighted, dazzled. It's wonderful. We offer our support forever to President Kim and to Dartmouth.